Good morning, happy Friday. Welcome to Coffee with a Farmer, Resource Manager. We had a few technical difficulties, but we're ready to go this morning with Dr. Cajun James from Sierra Pacific Industries. And she is a resource manager. So this morning we're going to be talking resources, and specifically we're going to be talking about water quality and other kinds of things that she monitors for Sierra Pacific, which she's going to tell you all about, which will be very cool. So this morning, instead of doing our normal question of the day, we're just going to do quick intros around the state so that all of you out there know who these faces are. I'm Mary Kimball. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Land-Based Learning, and I'm in Woodland.
Good morning, I'm Dana Baker. I'm the Tehama County Farms Leadership Coordinator, and I'm coming to you from Red Bluff.
Good morning, my name is Joseph Montoya. I'm the Farms Leadership Coordinator for the Sacramento Valley, and I'm broadcasting from West Sacramento.
Good morning, my name is Katie Wortman, coming to you from Fresno and the Central Valley Farms Leadership Coordinator.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Letty Hernandez, and I run the program in Monterey and Santa Cruz counties.
All right, it's time to introduce Dr. Cajun James. I'm really excited to have you on this morning. We have a wonderful relationship with the Farms Leadership Program and Center for Land-Based Learning with Sierra Pacific Industries. They're up north and also in other parts of California too, but yes, up there in the North State in Red Bluff and beyond, and she'll talk a little bit about that, but they have been wonderful partners for our farms program in Tehama County and in the Sacramento region. So it's great to have you on because this is a very different kind of job, Dr. James, than what others have been describing. We've been doing this now for almost 2 months. So you are a unique person, and we're super excited to be able to share with you today. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce yourself, a little bit about your background and how you came to the job that you have at Sierra Pacific Industries, which is Research and Monitoring Manager. So go ahead.
Good morning. Okay, so my name is Cajun James, and I grew up in San Diego and went to school down there, and I ended up going to UC Berkeley for my undergrad. I'm from a lower middle class family, so I always had to work. So I got pretty lucky that I found out there was a summer forestry camp at UC Berkeley that you could take to get a minor. So if you went there for the summer, you could get a minor in forestry. So I got a scholarship to attend that, and ended up getting a minor in forestry. And I worked for about 8 years, and then I went back and got my master's and my PhD at UC Berkeley. So I work in the agriculture sector. I work for a timber company, and I don't think I would have expected to work in timber because I'm more of a water chemist, a water quality person, erosion specialist. But I ended up basically I've always had to work to pay for my education and to pay for graduate school. And I got a teaching assistantship, and it was through a course there I met actually my current boss. I heard him give a talk, and then I was introduced to Mark Emerson, and I pitched them actually to fund my PhD thesis. And they said, great, somebody that's interested in forestry. So I did my forestry PhD on water chemistry and different types of harvesting and how those affected salmon, and how different buffers on long stream courses affected fisheries. And after that, I've been here ever since. And it was pretty comfortable for me because, I didn't grow up in a family where people wore suits and dressed up all the time. And when I went to college, I felt a little bit like a fish out of water because a lot of my friends, their parents had gone to college, and my parents did not. So I was the first person in my extended family to graduate from college. And because I always had to work, I think it made me a little bit more of a go-getter.
Mhm.
And so I was pretty fortunate to land this job before I had my PhD completed. And I've worked here ever since. And overall, I like the timber industry because I like to work outside.
Mhm.
I like it that I'm more of an applied scientist. And, everything I do is to help us inform our practices. So we are constantly evaluating our practices as farmers of trees and improving them. So I'm like the scientist / sheriff. So I do a lot of basic research to inform our practices and to improve our practices.
That's awesome. And I know you're going to show a little PowerPoint later, but we're going to start actually because there's this great video of Sierra Pacific Industries that you shared with me this morning. So we're going to start with that now. And I think that will help kind of set the stage for you to talk about more specifics about your job through your PowerPoint. So hopefully I'll be able to do this.
You will.
Yes, we will see. So here we go. Let me find and I'm gonna try to make sure. All right, here we are. Forest Proud, Guardians, okay. And let me see if I can get it started with actual, volume.
I've been involved in the industry pretty much my whole life. When I look at how we used to operate 50 years ago compared to today, it's dramatically different. There's much more protection of the environment, and as it should be. Everyone asks, are you sustainable? And the truth is we're not. If you're sustainable, you're level. We're much more than sustainable. We're growing much more than we harvest. You can harvest timber on a commercial basis and provide for the environment and the communities. We don't want to make sawdust, we want to make lumber. And with the technology, we have dramatically increased our recovery from the logs. Today, in our sawmills, we have virtually zero waste. Everything out of the forest is used. When you deal with land, it's different. There's something that's more tangible. It's more long-term.
It was 70 years ago. We started out with $10,000 of borrowed money and a leased sawmill out in the woods. I used to think that if we had a couple 100,000 acres, that'd be a lot. Well, today we've got over 2 million acres, and we're planning for 100 years from now.
Owning 2 million acres of land is a big responsibility, and we have to use the best science that's available to manage that land. From the species that are on our land, to the communities, to the timberland, I'm proud of the way we operate. We operate in a lot of small communities where we're the major employer, and it is a significant responsibility. My father didn't go to college. My grandfather, I think, graduated from 8th grade. My brother, sister, and I were fortunate enough to be able to go to college, and we hope to allow that opportunity for other folks. My grandfather started this Sierra Pacific Foundation 40 years ago. It's going to be the 40th anniversary this year. We provide opportunities for some folks maybe that wouldn't have that otherwise. If you work in our company, there's a very good chance that your child can get a scholarship. We are bringing dollars into the community, and we provide over 5,000 jobs. Virtually all the companies in the West that are involved in forestry are family-owned companies. I've been extremely fortunate to be able to work with my father, my brother, and there's just a sense of family and honesty, and it goes down to the land as well. When I think about our future, I'm extremely optimistic. People are starting to understand that if we want to reduce greenhouse gases, if we're concerned about climate change, wood is the answer. We can grow more forests, sequester carbon, and we can build buildings with mass timber. We have to think further than just tomorrow. We have to look out for the future. We're guardians of the community, We're guardians for our employees and the land. I mean, the land it's going to be here a lot longer than we are.
Wow, that's so cool. I love it. I only watched part of it this morning. That was such a great video. And I just also want to say these beautiful windows that are in our brand new facility here in Woodland are Sierra Pacific windows, as well as all the doors. And they are beautiful, and it's so great to see where they come from. So Dr. James, I'll turn it back over to you now with that intro of who Sierra Pacific Industries are in the company, and take it from here in terms of your role and your job.
Okay, so I'm the Research and Monitoring Director. I work mostly with the Forestry Division and performing basic research on different practices. And I also do a lot of water quality work for our mills, so testing any surface discharges we have from our mill ponds into waterways, which, we try to eliminate. And, I have a crew that goes out in the field, and there's about 220 people in the Forestry Division. I'm not sure if that's the exact number, but we've grown. We used to have, 50, and now we were at 100, and now we're well over 150, 200. And we're a pretty small team of foresters. Most of us have worked at Sierra Pacific for a long time. I think that's one of the things that makes us a really good company, is we have a lot of hardworking people that, are committed to a long-term job. So we get empowered to do our own projects, and we get to see them executed and see what happens over the long term. So did you want me to do my PowerPoint now, or is that what you're thinking?
Sure, go ahead and do that. We had one question that came up, and I think this would be a good one to answer now, and then you can do your PowerPoint. So Shiva, and make sure, Shiva, that you tell Dr. James where you're from as well.
Hi, my name is Shiva Keller. I'm from Sacramento, and I'm currently a senior at Sac High. And I just want to know if there's like a lot of diversity in your workforce or the industry that you work in.
So I think so, yes. I mean, because there's a lot of different jobs in forestry. So we have folks that, work at Sierra Pacific. So in our windows plant, we have folks building windows. We have folks that actually all of the largest molding plant in the Western U.S. is in Red Bluff, California. So we have a lot of manufacturing jobs, and then we also have field jobs. And so there is a lot of diversity within Sierra Pacific, and I see, more of it coming online in the forestry division specifically, as our rural communities have diversified, and as the college applicant pool has diversified.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about forestry is that, you don't have to have a college degree to work for Sierra Pacific. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of folks that have AA degrees. Forestry is a degree if you're interested in being a registered professional forester, where you can actually apprentice. So you can have a high school, and if you work 7 years for a company that has RPFs, you can then take the state exam. So does that answer your question? Is that what you're looking at?
I think she was also asking Dr. James about racial and gender diversity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is. It's in forestry, frankly, forestry was pretty much a guy's job, I would say I was one of the kind of first women to break into management in forestry in California. I still am. And there's a lot more women that are following. So, that's changing over time, like our culture is changing. Mm-hmm. And those changes, I think, bring a lot of positive things to the table. Women and people with a diversity of backgrounds bring a lot of different ideas and creativity. So you know, I think all those changes are happening, and you know, it's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Shiva. Appreciate that. Okay, Dr. James, go ahead and share your screen and start your PowerPoint.
Okay. Share my screen.
Yeah.
And I'll start my power.
There we go.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
I did want to follow up with one of those questions. You know, I was raised in a larger city and went to school in Berkeley, and one of the nice things about being in a more rural area is I think that, you know, we're a lot more flexible with folks because, you know, we're a large company in rural California, but we're actually a smaller company in the sense that we know most of the people. And so we can be a lot more flexibility with the needs of people than, you know, if you were in a big city. Because there's just, you know, if you're a valued employee, we're going to do our best to make whatever need happen for you that we need. Okay, so I'm going to go over quickly what I do. And if any of this interests you, you can follow it up with questions.
Mm-hmm.
So my name is Cajun James. I also put Christine Lanham's name down. She's our community specialist that does a lot of presentations and things for Sierra Pacific. So one of the things that I do is I collaborate with a lot of folks. Being more of a researcher, you know, I really find a need to reach out and find expertise. So this first slide is just listing a lot of the different partners that I work with. And this is a quick picture of the Sierra Pacific property in California. It's in the blue. So Sierra Pacific owns close to 2 million acres, and I think we're up to 2.2 million acres. So we own most of the property in California and some in Seattle. So my primary functions in the department I run is I have a quality assurance project plan. If you want to look on our webpage, I can show you where that is. But you know, my job and my goal here is to basically do basic applied research where I study timber harvest operations. And, you know, I look a lot at the impacts of fire and our different forestry operations, and to basically document if our practices are protecting the environment or not. I do a lot of monitoring with weather stations, and actually I'm a fire forecaster. That's one of my big things. I also do a lot of road inventory stuff. So this is a slide of our water quality monitoring stations. So up here, I can see. So this is the device that goes in the stream, and these measure every 15 minutes, and there's different parameters that are measured: temperature, turbidity, dissolved oxygen, pH, and they're deployed year-round, and this is a Montana partial flume. But the idea is that these are in watersheds where we're logging over time. And so I get to see how the water quality changes with the different seasons and over time with the different types of logging that's being done. Mm-hmm. This is a big effort that I've been doing kind of the last 10 years. We've been having more and more fires. So this is a picture of an experiment that I did where I built these large sediment fences. They're actually very large. They're like 10 feet tall. And, you know, we're basically collecting sediment off a hill slope that's going in there. And we were monitoring different salvage logging operations and seeing which produce the, you know, varying amounts of sediment. So trying to find out which of those treatments. And this is probably, I hope, one of the slides you'll pay the most attention to, because if you live in Northern California, you know, well, anywhere now, I mean, LA burned pretty hard a year and a half ago. You know, it used to be that fires never got into riparian zones or along a stream side. And now we're having a lot more fires actually burning through riparian zones. And that's because the vegetation in the riparian zones is often more than the adjacent hill slopes. And so fires are carrying through riparian zones. Here's a picture of this equipment that I use. You know, from a researcher's point of view, this is actually really cool because a fire burned through a continuous water quality station. So I was able to monitor pre-fire water quality and post-fire. So I just wanted to show you that. I'm just going to run through some quick things of what I do to give you an idea. So a lot of the assessments that we're doing post-fire have, here's 2 examples of 2 creeks that were burned over in the Ponderosa fire. So it'll just show you what the condition is of these and, how our goal is to start rehabilitating these waterways as soon as we can. So there's that. The other thing that we do, or that I do a lot, is I'm really interested in stream macroinvertebrates. So these are the aquatic insects that live in streams. And aquatic insects can be used as water quality indicators. This is a really common science that's used in Europe. They do different types of water quality monitoring, and often they're just using these stream bugs as indicators of different water quality conditions. So these are some images of macroinvertebrates that we've measured in different streams, and we're looking at how those respond over time. So here's some pictures of ground-based salvage logging. I've been doing a lot of my research lately on salvage logging because we've had a lot of large fires throughout California that have hit on our ownership. So this is an example of ground-based logging over here, and these are the piles, and the trucks come in and load them up. So this is really important because a lot of folks are concerned about these fire areas and want to make sure we're doing a good job post-fire. So I do have a lot of experiments looking at different operations for that. We do a lot of helicopter logging. Of course, helicopter logging is a lot more expensive than ground-based logging, which I showed you the previous picture of, but we do it in areas that have really steep slopes. So I thought I'd shoot you a picture of that. This is the fire weather network that I mentioned earlier. One of the things I would encourage you to do if you choose to go to college is to be as technically trained as you can. I had the opportunity to get a job in a science lab at UC Berkeley where I went to undergrad, where I ended up putting together a lot of equipment, and it kind of got me down, headed down a road of being, they used to call me gadget girl in college, It was a long time ago before everybody had cell phones, but I got pretty good at putting equipment together, scientific equipment. So I was using weather stations when I was an undergrad. I worked on a project. It was part of my financial aid project, but because of that job, I learned how to put together stuff. So when I first came to Sierra Pacific, one of the very first things I did is put together a weather station network. And actually, Sierra Pacific Industries has the largest private industrial weather station network in the United States. And this has been ongoing for 20 years. We have over 100 weather stations. And from these weather stations, actually this morning before I got on this call, I was sending out fire forecasts to all our operators and the SPI employees. So I run this national fire danger rating model that the government runs. And it's really important because we want to do everything we can to limit any fire risk from our operations. So that's a big part. And what's interesting is the data, all the stations are out in the field. This isn't the greatest map, but this shows you sort of where our stations are distributed. And all of the data comes into my office in Anderson off this network, and then I take and run all that data into models every morning, and by 10 o'clock I send out a fire risk forecast for the next day, and the SBI fire policy is based on this network. And so the idea is local fire weather is best, so I pair all of our harvest operations with either a permanent weather station or we deploy portable weather stations on site so we can have the most accurate knowledge of the local fire weather conditions, and we run that through the model so we know the fire risk. So I'll move on now to surface erosion. That's a huge issue for us with, if you were to ask me, from a water quality perspective, or how would forestry impact water quality, it's really important for us to keep the soil on the hill slope. So I do a lot of research trying to understand how different practices, may increase or decrease erosion production. So here's some images that was published in a paper where I looked at, this is a common practice in agriculture, this winged rip soiler. And I looked at different methods of doing this on forest slopes. And then I measured post-fire hill slopes that were treated with this contour tilling, or some agricultural folks call it ripping. And so the idea with this was to look at different ways of treating the ground post-fire to keep, the soil on the slope and to not have it run off. So I'll switch now to road inventories. So basically, erosion on hill slopes and erosion off road networks typically are identified as the highest source of sediment production in forested watersheds. So I worked with a couple of researchers, one from UW and a fellow who's a geomorphologist, Lee Benda. We figured out a way to use tablets and Bluetooth GPS to inventory our road network and to then create a model. So this is an image of a fellow on a quad, and he's using a tablet. And all this stuff here is different points that, information was collected on culverts or fords or different size pipes. So I guess I'll finish up with a couple of slides where, my goal is to share the information with the foresters and the regulatory community, and also I publish in scientific journals. So this is just a picture of a paper I published in Forest Science on the post-fire salvage erosion. So there's that. And then I'm not sure if any of you know about the California Environmental Data Exchange Network. I put a lot of my macroinvertebrate and water quality data into this under the Sierra Pacific research projects. And the idea with that is to make the data publicly available so everybody can use it and we can have good discussions. And I'll conclude by saying, okay, I'm open for questions.
That's great. Go ahead and stop sharing your screen so that we can see you again. Awesome. And there was this is great. There's a question. I knew there was one up, but I couldn't see it. So Jessica Legrand has a question, and so Letty will unmute her, and hopefully she's still there and she can ask her question. Maybe.
She typed out her question. Do you see it?
She did. So I just was hoping she'd still be there. But what skills or experiences do you need to have to be successful in your job? Which this is great because you and I were talking a little bit about this earlier this morning.
Yeah, I think that I came out my job differently because when I was in school, you didn't have the ability to take out a lot of loans. So I had to work. I always worked. I worked 1 or 2 jobs through my undergrad and through my graduate studies. So I think I came with a good work ethic because my parents were not able to pay for me to go to college. I also think I'm optimistic person. You know, I'm willing to try different things and just do it. So I think my work ethic and just the fact that I always worked a different range of jobs. So when I was in college, I was teaching coursework through a graduate student, but I also was willing to do anything. I washed dishes, I planted trees, I was willing to do anything, but also I studied hard and I stayed in school. And I think that my education was a really good, point for me to jump off of. So I think going to college, working hard, and being willing to take a job, even though it wasn't my perfect job, kind of got me in a position to meet people and to get a better job once I was finally finished.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about this before, that you actually met, is it Mark Emerson? I'm forgetting the first name.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
a, something at UC Berkeley. And then back to that networking piece, which we talk about a lot, the importance of networking when you meet people like they do in the Farms Leadership Program. And if you find somebody who's interesting, or a job or a company that you're interested in, to connect with those people and ask them about their company and ask them about opportunities that they may have at your job, their company. You did that. I mean, which was so, and you got a job out of it. You created your own job, right? I mean,
and that's something that I would encourage people to do. It's like, you need to reach out and ask people like what their job is like. And we have summer jobs here. And I think one of the things, because I was always working, it allowed me to be a little bit more comfortable to ask, like, what would the job be? What would I be doing? What was expected of me? And just being willing to ask. I took a lot of time, kind of talking to different people about what they did. And I think that's the one thing that I think is important about working, especially if you think you may want to work in the forestry field or do something in agriculture. If you don't work in your field until you graduate, or, until you get your AA, you may find out you don't like it. Mm-hmm. So, these types of jobs are good experiences just to confirm or deny, yeah, this is something I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to be outside some, and I knew from my personality that I didn't want to be behind a desk 24/7. That was not going to work for me. And, so I felt pretty lucky. And I talk about previewing people. And, I do this when I meet someone, like first impressions matter. Are they prepared? Have they looked at my webpage and kind of read about what I do? Are they interested? I didn't grow up in a part of, oh, here's Christy.
Hi, Christy.
Yeah, I wasn't from a logging family, so I was fairly open-minded. And I think that's important. You need to give people a chance to answer your questions and listen to what they say. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give the phone to Christy.
Oh, good. Okay. Good morning,
all the joys. Good morning. Well, we are just so pleased. I know you had some great time with Dr. James this morning, and I think for all the students out there and coordinators too across the board, we just are excited to share the opportunities, across industries. And while you think of farms leadership, it may, primarily be, or have been in the past, a large focus on farming and ag. But as you learned today, I know with this Coffee with a Farmer or Resource Manager, on the natural resources side, the opportunities are endless. And truly, those that want to work outdoors and have a true impact on your environment, on the health of our forests, on the clarity and quality of our water that serves not just your town and your region, but the entire state, as well as the wildlife and habitat. I mean, we can all agree that no matter if you're talking with a rancher or a land trust or those on the in the sciences, we are all really in step. And I think the, opportunities for students to dip their toe in the water with internships, you're seeing more and more of those opportunities available to you during your summers, as well as throughout college. And we would encourage you to keep us in mind. Know that it's just not Northern California, it's all throughout our regions and throughout California and Washington, and that as an industry, we work hand in hand. So it isn't, when you go to work for a company, let's say as an intern or as a, working in the field for your first summer, it may be up in the woods for a competitor. And in all other industries, it's that may be seen as not so great thing. But for us, we see that the more and more students and that new talent and that desire to work in a field where you have an ability to make an impact, that's a win across the board. And so what we see in the skill sets and in our ag and FFA students, and as well as those that are interested in the tech and the really the AI and the engineering behind and that work coinciding with the sciences, the true opportunities are yours for the taking.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Christy. That was really well said. And I meant earlier to talk about how right now, I mean, it's always been the case in California, but I think even more so now, that the forestry industry has a lot of opportunities. And partially that's because of the amount of fires that we've had, unfortunately, but also because, as was well discussed in the video, the issues around climate change. And that timber and that wood have a big part of the answer. And agriculture in general, plants, the ability to sequester carbon in the soil and
right.
in timber is such a big opportunity. And so now, right now, and whether you like wildlife, like you did a great job, with the video, and obviously Dr. James talking about all of the different aspects of her job, and that there's so many different parts of that world that might interest many of our students. And so we definitely don't want people to forget about forestry, because we tend to focus just on ag and environmental sciences, but we forget about forestry, which is, I can't remember, Dr. James, you probably know the answer to this, the percentage of acres in California that are covered with forest. It's a very high percentage.
So forested acreage in California, percentage of our land in California as a whole as forestry.
I mean, I know 60% of California's land is rangeland, which is a lot.
Yep.
But I don't remember.
We've got heavy rangeland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, we can confirm that. A lot of it is that blended, as far as our, the difference of the checkerboard, so land owned by the federal government, by BLM, you see national forests, as well as privately owned forests, which, we've got well over a million just with SPI and 2 million nationally. But I'll have to circle back with you on the exact across the state of California as far as how much of it is forested in general. But you made a good point with all of those. Yeah. But with all of those industry and products, I think day in and day out, you look at the paper we use, especially right now, the COVID-19 conversations and shortages of toilet paper, for instance. But, for the students, I put a challenge out there, in your day-to-day as you sit down at your desk, your dinner table, as you look at the products you use, you may see a stamp on them, which we can send out as kind of a follow-up. But it may have an SFI stamp, which is the highest level of sustainable forestry initiative that we are certified in. Or you may even see your grocery bags, right? Those brown grocery bags. They'll either be noted with that leaf and SFI or an FSC, which is the next lower level of certification. But as we, in our day-to-day lives, look at the wood products, forest products, if you check out the Forest Foundation for California, it's an amazing website with great resources too for coordinators, as well as teachers that we will be more than happy to connect you with our Talk About Trees program, which is a statewide initiative, and they'll come into the classroom and take students out for field days to really get them thinking about how we use this renewable resource and how our building and construction these days are going more and more green. We love solar. We love, building with mass timber as we're seeing building codes and otherwise improve. So it's an exciting time, and your opportunities in our neck of the woods are great.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's a perfect way, I think, to end today. We really appreciate you coming on, Dr. James. and sharing everything with us. And obviously, Christy, as I said earlier in the beginning, the support from SPI in general to the Farms Leadership Program, not just in your region up there in North State, but also the Sacramento region. We're so appreciative of that. And this is going to be a great opportunity for more teachers and students to learn about all that there is available in this industry. So we thank you very, very much.
Great. Can I take 2 seconds and answer a question that was on the chat? So Katie Wortman asked a question.
Oh, yeah.
It says, does SPI own the water, or are you monitoring it for the public? That does make sense. So the way that California water rights work is that nobody owns water. You can own rights to use a certain amount of water, but the idea is that just geographically how California is situated, the water starts at the very top of the mountains in the Sierras or the Cascades, and it travels through our timberlands down to the Central Valley. So actually the #1 product that we produce is keeping that water clean. And so we're not a water provider or producer. We don't bottle water or anything like that. We're just monitoring to make sure that the water exiting our property is in high quality, good condition, and that we're not impacting that negatively. The second quick question that you said is, how do we handle the backlash of fires in the public? It's through education and cooperation. A lot of folks don't realize that the state of California imports 80% of its wood products. This is probably the big thing for me that got me interested in working in the timber industry, is that, California has the highest site productivity in the world for growing trees. And so we could be self-sufficient if, we wouldn't need to import anything. So we just collaborate, we cooperate, we talk. We have numbers and science, and, the fact is, not everybody likes forestry, but we think we provide a high quality product where we use science to inform our management. So
that's great.
Yeah, and we do all kinds of protections. And then, do we graze our land? We do have we don't produce cows. We do have people that can lease our land, and because we're checkerboarded, there's Forest Service contracts for that. And so I think the main thing is that a lot of these controversial questions, may be controversial, but they're dealt with by communicating. And, most folks want to see, California, maintaining our forest lands in good condition. And the main thing that I try to tell people is that there's a consequence if we don't thin our forests. And that impacts water quality. So there's a trade-off. So I think we can maintain our forest lands in really good condition, reduce the fire risk, and, provide good, clean water. And, anybody else that wants to contact me or Christy, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to when we send this out to both of you, we send out, your names obviously, and emails will also be included for folks who want to get in touch with you, including teachers like you were talking about, Christy. And certainly, again, this will be on YouTube, and so it's open to the public, and people will be able to watch it, and we'll make sure that your information is included there too. So thank you again. We really appreciate it. It's great to spend a Friday morning with all of you.
Good.
Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much.